The sizzling sound of onions hitting the pan was supposed to be comforting, but tonight, it only amplified the knot in my stomach. I wiped my clammy hands on my apron and glanced nervously at the clock. Emma would be here any minute, and I was already bracing myself for the inevitable. The kitchen was filled with the aroma of garlic and rosemary, the smell of a meal I had painstakingly practiced over and over again in the past weeks. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight I was cooking for Emma, my closest friend since college, the person who knew every messy corner of my life, but also the one who never missed a chance to mock my culinary skills. The doorbell rang sharp and sudden. I took a deep breath, smoothing my hair and plastering on a smile as I opened the door. Emma stood there, arms crossed, that familiar smirk playing on her lips like she was already privy to some inside joke at my expense. She wore her usual chic black jacket and those impossibly high heels that somehow made her look taller than me, although I was already pushing 5'9". "Ready to have your cooking dreams crushed?" she teased, stepping inside with the confidence of someone who had never once burned toast in her life. I forced a laugh, closing the door behind her. "Come on, it's not that bad. I've been working on this recipe for weeks." Emma arched a brow, her eyes scanning the modest kitchen like a critic at a high-end restaurant. "Weeks? And this is what you came up with? I'm not sure I want to see what your disasters look like." I gritted my teeth but didn't respond. Instead, I led her to the small dining table I'd set up by the window, the only spot with enough light and space to make the evening feel a little special. The tablecloth was a soft cream, and I'd arranged fresh herbs in a tiny vase, details I hoped would soften her skepticism. As I plated the rosemary garlic chicken, my hands trembled just slightly, betraying the excitement and anxiety swirling inside me. Cooking wasn't just a hobby for me. It was the lifeline I'd clung to through every twist and turn of my life. The dream of opening my own restaurant wasn't just a whim. It was the beacon that kept me moving forward, even on days when doubt threatened to swallow me whole. Emma sat down, folding her hands on the table. "So what's the story here? Another one of your experiments?" I shrugged, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "It's a recipe I've been perfecting. I wanted you to try it because, well, you're the toughest critic I know." She snorted. "Yeah, that's one way to put it." Her eyes flicked to the plate and then back to me. "You know, Alex, I don't get why you keep wasting time on this. You should focus on something that actually matters, like your real job." Her words stung worse than any blunt insult. It wasn't the first time she'd belittled my passion, and it probably wouldn't be the last. But tonight the weight felt heavier. Maybe it was the exhaustion from months of juggling side gigs and late-night cooking sessions, or the quiet hope that this meal might finally change her mind. I took a deep breath and sat opposite her, watching as she picked up her fork with exaggerated caution. The first bite was silent, her face unreadable. I held my breath, willing her to say something, anything, that didn't shred my confidence. Emma swallowed slowly, setting down her fork. "Okay," she said finally, voice low and deliberate. "I'll give you this, it's not terrible." I blinked, caught off guard. "Not terrible?" She rolled her eyes. "Look, Alex, you know I'm brutally honest, but this actually tastes decent. Maybe if you didn't burn half your meals, you'd be a great cook." A flicker of a smile teased at the corner of my mouth. "Thanks for the vote of confidence." She laughed, a sharp, mocking sound that filled the room. "Hey, I'm just being real. I want you to succeed, but you've got to stop pretending this is your thing when you're clearly terrible at it." I felt my stomach twist, a mixture of frustration and hurt bubbling beneath the surface. Emma wasn't just my friend. She was my harshest critic, the voice that echoed my own insecurities louder than I liked to admit. But somewhere, beneath the sarcasm and biting remarks, I knew she wanted me to prove her wrong. Maybe she just didn't know how to say it. "I'm not pretending," I said quietly, meeting her gaze. "I love cooking. It's the one thing that makes me feel like I'm building something real." Emma's smirk softened for a moment, replaced by something almost like understanding. "Then maybe you should stop trying to impress me and start impressing yourself." Her words hung in the air, heavier than any criticism she'd thrown my way before. I nodded slowly, feeling a resolve hardening inside me. This wasn't just about cooking for Emma anymore. It was about proving to myself that I could turn this passion into something meaningful, something that would silence not just her doubts but my own. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversation and laughter, though beneath it all the tension remained, an unspoken challenge between us. Emma's teasing never fully ceased, but her eyes held a flicker of respect I hadn't seen before. For the first time in a long time I felt a spark of hope. As she left, still shaking her head with that familiar smirk, I stood in the kitchen surrounded by the remnants of dinner. The quiet clatter of dishes felt like a starting gun in a race I was finally ready to run. I'm Alex Morgan, 28, and this is the night I decided to stop letting mockery define my dreams. The road ahead would be anything but easy, but for the first time I was ready to cook up my own success, one meal at a time. The sting of Emma's mockery the night before had settled into a dull ache that fueled every waking moment. I woke early, my mind already racing through recipes, budgets, and business plans. The kitchen, once a place of anxiety, had transformed into my sanctuary. I spent hours poring over cookbooks and watching online tutorials, not just to refine my dishes, but to understand the science behind flavors, textures, and presentation. Every misstep was a lesson, every burnt edge a reminder that mastery was forged through persistence. I remember the first time I tried to calculate the cost of opening a restaurant. Numbers spilled across my notebook. Rent, licenses, equipment, staff wages, and my head spun. The dream I'd nurtured for years suddenly felt like a mountain I had no map to climb. But I wasn't about to let the math scare me away. I pulled out my laptop and started researching financial planning for small businesses, devouring articles, blogs, and forums. I learned about profit margins, supply chains, and marketing strategies, the language of business that had always felt foreign but was now essential. With every new piece of knowledge, my confidence grew, even as the challenges multiplied. I started saving obsessively, cutting back on nights out, skipping takeout meals, and turning down invitations, all to stash away every extra dollar. My days were a whirlwind of side gigs, from waitressing shifts to freelance writing, all funneling into a growing pot I labeled Restaurant Fund. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. Every penny was a brick in the foundation I was building. Emma's voice, sharp and dismissive, echoed in my mind, but instead of breaking me, it pushed me harder. I began hosting small pop-up dinners in my apartment, inviting friends and acquaintances to taste my evolving menu. Each event was a test, a chance to refine recipes, gauge reactions, and build word of mouth. The nights were exhausting, filled with frantic chopping, sizzling pans, and the constant hum of nerves, but the smiles and compliments were intoxicating. Not everyone was convinced, though. Emma's skepticism never waned. When I mentioned my plans, she'd roll her eyes and drop comments like, "You're chasing a fantasy," or, "You don't have what it takes to run a real business." Those words stung, but I learned to hear them as a challenge rather than a verdict. I started keeping a journal of every insult and doubt, turning each into fuel, a reminder that success would be my best reply. The hardest part was learning to balance the creative and the practical. I loved experimenting with flavors and presentation, but I had to face the realities of sourcing ingredients at a price that made sense, managing waste, and designing a menu that was both exciting and efficient. I spent weekends visiting farmers markets, meeting suppliers, and negotiating prices. It was a crash course in logistics and diplomacy, one that tested my patience but sharpened my resolve. One night, after a particularly long day, I sat cross-legged on my kitchen floor, surrounded by receipts, spreadsheets, and recipe books. My phone buzzed with a message from Emma. "Still wasting time on this?" "Just saying." I stared at the screen, feeling a surge of defiance. I typed back, "Watch me." Slowly, the small pop-ups began to draw attention beyond my circle of friends. Social media posts spread, food bloggers stopped by, and local food lovers started asking when I'd open a real place. Each positive review was a victory, a crack in the wall of doubt that had surrounded me for so long. I even caught a few glimpses of surprise on Emma's face when she saw the buzz online, but she kept her distance, her usual sarcasm masking any shred of pride. Through it all, I kept a steady rhythm. Mornings were for budgeting and planning, afternoons for recipe testing and ingredient sourcing, evenings for writing proposals and networking. I enrolled in a weekend business course to fill gaps in my knowledge, learning about permits, insurance, and employee management. The more I learned, the clearer the path became, even if the summit still seemed distant. One afternoon, while I was tasting a new sauce blend, my phone rang. It was my cousin Maya who had always believed in me. "Alex, have you thought about doing a pop-up at that new community center? They're looking for local chefs to showcase their work." The idea sparked something in me. An opportunity to reach a broader audience, to test my concept in a more public setting. I threw myself into preparations, designing a menu that balanced creativity with crowd-pleasing favorites. I coordinated with the center's staff, managed permits, and recruited a few friends to help with setup and service. The day of the event was a whirlwind of nerves and excitement. The community center buzzed with energy, and as the first guests arrived, I felt a surge of pride that no amount of criticism could diminish. Emma wasn't at the pop-up, but I imagined her watching from afar, skeptical yet curious. I pictured her biting back a sarcastic comment, replaced by a flicker of respect I'd yet to earn. That thought alone drove me to push harder, to refine my craft and business acumen until my success spoke louder than her doubts. By the end of the event, I was exhausted but exhilarated. The positive feedback, the connections made, and the small but steady income from sales all validated the months of sacrifice and hard work. I knew the road ahead was still long and uncertain, but for the first time, I felt the weight of possibility rather than fear. I'm Alex Morgan, 28, and this is the chapter where mockery became motivation, where a dream started taking shape not just in my mind but in the real world. The kitchen was no longer just a place of trial and error. It was the forge where I was crafting my future, one recipe and spreadsheet at a time. The night air was cool as I unlocked the door to my restaurant for the very first time. The sign above the entrance, simple yet elegant, glowed softly in the amber streetlights. Savor. It was a name I'd agonized over for weeks, finally settling on something that felt like a promise to my future self. As I stepped inside, the scent of freshly polished wood mixed with a faint trace of herbs filled the air, and my heart pounded with a mixture of pride and nerves. The months leading up to this moment had been a blur of paperwork, renovations, and endless rehearsals. I'd poured every spare dollar, every sleepless night, into turning this dream into reality. From negotiating with landlords to designing the menu, every detail had my fingerprints on it. Now, as the clock edged closer to opening time, I felt the weight of both expectation and possibility pressing down. I glanced at my phone and saw a message from Emma. "So this is it? Opening night. Should I come and see what all the fuss is about?" The casual tone masked a challenge, one I was ready to accept. I replied, "Be my guest. I want you to be the first." Minutes later, the doorbell chimed and Emma walked in, her usual confident stride tempered by a flicker of curiosity. She wore a sleek blazer and jeans, a subtle nod to the casual elegance of the place. Her eyes scanned the room with a mixture of appraisal and disbelief. The space was intimate but warm, with soft lighting, rustic tables, and carefully curated art on the walls. I had wanted the ambience to feel inviting, a place where food was the star but comfort was king. "Not bad," Emma muttered under her breath, but I caught it. Her smirk was there but softer, less sharp than usual. I led her to a table near the window, the one I had reserved just for her. The staff buzzed quietly around us, their professionalism a testament to the journey we'd taken together. I handed her the menu, watching as she flipped through it with a raised eyebrow. The dishes were a reflection of my evolution. Seasonal, innovative, and deeply personal. I'd combined the classics I loved with bold twists, each plate crafted to tell a story. I felt a surge of pride as I described the inspiration behind the rosemary garlic chicken and the locally sourced vegetable medley. When the first course arrived, a delicate beet and goat cheese salad with candied walnuts, Emma's face shifted. She took a tentative bite, eyes closing briefly as she savored the flavors. The room fell away for a moment, and I saw a flicker of genuine surprise. As the evening unfolded, each dish followed suit. Seared scallops with a citrus glaze, handmade pasta tossed in a sage butter sauce, and a decadent chocolate ganache for dessert. Emma's critiques became less biting, her posture relaxing as the meal exceeded the bar she had set so high. At one point she leaned back, swirling a glass of wine, and said softly, "You've really outdone yourself, Alex." I smiled, heart pounding, but kept my composure. "Thanks. It means a lot coming from you." She studied me for a moment, as if trying to reconcile the relentless skeptic with the chef now sitting across from her. "I guess I underestimated you. I thought this was just a hobby that'd fizzle out." I shook my head gently. It's never been just a hobby. It's my passion, my future. Emma nodded slowly, the smirk replaced by something warmer, more respectful. Well, I'm impressed. This place. It's got soul. And so do you. Her words, though simple, felt like a victory far greater than any praise from strangers. It was the acknowledgement that I wasn't just chasing a dream, I was realizing it. The evening wound down with quiet conversation and shared stories, the tension between us easing into a comfortable camaraderie. Emma admitted she'd been wrong to doubt me so harshly, and I accepted her apology with grace. There was no gloating, just a quiet confidence in what I'd built. As she left, she paused at the door and turned back. You're going to go far, Alex. Just don't forget to enjoy the ride. I watched her disappear into the night, the restaurant's warm glow behind her. The journey was just beginning, but for the first time I felt truly seen, not just by the world but by the one person whose opinion had mattered most. I'm Alex Morgan, 28, and this is the night my restaurant opened its doors. Not just to guests, but to a future shaped by resilience, talent, and the power of proving doubters wrong. The real work was ahead, but I was ready to embrace every challenge one plate at a time. Emma's voice caught me off guard that evening, the words coming softer than I'd ever heard from her before. We sat across from each other in the quiet corner of Savor, the hum of the kitchen fading into the background as the night wore on. The restaurant was closed to the public, but I had invited her back, not out of obligation, but because I sensed something shifting between us. I have to admit, she began, swirling the last drops of wine in her glass, I was wrong about you, about this place, about everything. Her eyes searched mine, and for once, the usual edge of sarcasm was gone, replaced by genuine respect. I didn't rush to fill the silence, letting her words hang like a delicate seasoning over the moment. You've got talent, Alex. Real talent. And not just in the kitchen. She paused, as if weighing the sincerity of her next words. You've got the business sense too. The grit to make it work. I nodded slowly, feeling a warmth spread through me that had nothing to do with the wine. Thank you. That means a lot. Emma's admission wasn't just about the food or the restaurant. It was about the years of doubt and mockery she'd thrown my way. I remembered the countless times she dismissed my dreams as childish fantasies, the barbs disguised as jokes that had chipped away at my confidence. But in this moment she was acknowledging the person I'd become. A woman who had turned criticism into fuel, who had built something real from scratch. I guess I was jealous, she confessed quietly. You went after what you wanted. You didn't wait for permission or approval. I was stuck playing it safe. Her honesty surprised me. It was rare to see vulnerability in Emma, who'd always worn confidence like armor. I reached across the table and gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. It's not easy, I said. The path I chose comes with its own set of challenges. But it's worth it. She smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her eyes. You've changed the way I see things. Not just about cooking but about chasing dreams. Watching you grow has been inspiring. I felt a swell of pride, tempered by humility. Success had never been about proving Emma wrong. It was about proving to myself that I could rise above the noise. Yet, having her recognition meant something deeper. A restoration of a friendship that had been strained by doubt. Over the next few weeks, Emma's attitude toward me and Savor shifted noticeably. She became a regular, not just as a patron but as a supporter. I caught her recommending the restaurant to colleagues and strangers alike, her previous critiques replaced by enthusiastic praise. One afternoon, as we walked through the neighborhood after a busy lunch service, she turned to me and said, You know, I think you've got what it takes to really change this industry. Not just with food but with how you run things. You're smart about it. Her words were a balm to the wounds of years past. I smiled, feeling the weight of her acknowledgement settle comfortably between us. I'm glad you see it, I replied. I've learned a lot along the way. Mostly that success isn't just about talent. It's about resilience, adaptability, and staying true to yourself. Emma nodded thoughtfully. And maybe a little stubbornness. We laughed, the sound light and genuine. It felt like a new beginning, not just for the restaurant, but for our friendship. That evening back at Savor, I stood behind the counter watching the sun set through the windows. The restaurant was humming with satisfied diners, the energy electric yet calm. Emma sat at a table near the front, chatting animatedly with some new customers she'd brought in. Seeing her there, fully engaged and supportive, I realized how far we'd both come. I'm Alex Morgan, 28, and this is the chapter where acknowledgement replaced mockery, where respect rebuilt what doubt had threatened to break. Emma's changed attitude reminded me that sometimes, the hardest battles are won not just with skill or determination, but with the grace to accept and grow alongside those who once doubted you. The neon glow of Savor buzzed gently against the darkening sky as I locked up for the night. The hum of the day's busy service still echoed in my ears, the clatter of plates, the murmur of satisfied customers, the sharp commands from the kitchen. This restaurant wasn't just a place to eat anymore. It had become a symbol of everything I'd fought for, a testament to resilience and relentless passion. Months had passed since Emma's grudging acknowledgement, and the momentum only grew. Word of mouth spread like wildfire, and soon Savor was more than a neighborhood secret, it was a destination. Food critics stopped by, their reviews praising not only the inventive menu but the heart behind every dish. Reservations filled up weeks in advance, and the team I'd assembled worked seamlessly, each member inspired by the shared vision. I found myself mentoring young, aspiring chefs who came to me with wide eyes and big dreams, reminding me of my own uncertain beginnings. Their enthusiasm was contagious, and I took pride in guiding them through the same challenges I'd faced, balancing creativity with discipline, passion with pragmatism. It was a cycle of growth, one that made the long nights and endless hurdles worthwhile. One afternoon, as I was reviewing supplier contracts, a young woman named Lily approached me nervously. She'd been working in the kitchen for a few months, her hands skilled but her confidence shaky. "Alex," she said quietly, "thank you for believing in me. I never thought I'd get this far." Her words struck a chord. I saw in her the reflection of my own journey, the doubts, the late nights, the courage it took to keep going. "You've got talent," I told her firmly. "Keep pushing. Your hard work will pay off." Outside the restaurant, the city buzzed with life, but inside, there was a sense of community, a family forged by shared dreams and relentless dedication. Each plate that left the kitchen carried not just flavors, but stories of perseverance and transformation. Emma remained a part of this journey, her once skeptical voice now one of support and pride. Our friendship had evolved into something stronger, built on mutual respect rather than judgment. She often brought friends and colleagues, proudly introducing them to the chef who had defied expectations. As I closed the ledger one evening, I reflected on the path that had brought me here. The mockery, the doubts, the late nights spent perfecting recipes and balancing budgets. It all had led to this moment of triumph. But success wasn't a destination. It was a continual process, a commitment to growth and authenticity. I'm Alex Morgan, 28, and this is how I turned ridicule into resilience, transforming a dream into a thriving reality. Savor isn't just my restaurant. It's a beacon for anyone who's ever been told they can't. A reminder that with belief, hard work, and a dash of stubbornness, passion can become power. If you love the story, like the video and subscribe.